I got to see the film a couple days ago, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let me get to the right page. So I know that this is sort of this novella came out in 1997 or 1998.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's been kind of in the works with at least your producing partner for a while.
Yes.
And that you switched the lead character from, I think, Andy to an Abby.
Yeah, it was from Abel to Abby.
To Abby, excuse me. So why that change?
Well, I've got daughters, and I was talking to them, and they were like, "Oh, great, another film with a male hero," and they gave me a bit of hard time. But also, I felt like, the environmental movement was being championed by a lot of young women. Greta Thunberg was doing incredible work in that area, and felt like as an inspiring story for all young people that it wouldn't hurt the story. So I talked to the author, and he was like, "Yeah, great idea, go for it." And so we changed it to a young girl. So it's another daughter story.
Do you think that it has a different impact of having like a mother-daughter story opposed to a mother-son story?
I think it's a universal story for young people, and I think it would have worked very well with a young boy. But I do think that it's a story we don't see that often in cinema. And I think, Radha can speak to playing the mother of this amazing actress that we found, but I think that it definitely spoke to me as a story, having observed my own children growing up and their own politics and their own interests and how much they cared about the ocean. I think there's a great power in that generation. Yeah. That scene where she shows them all the paintings of, it's this generation that really care and want to affect change and want to impact and want to make a difference, and they just have to be listened to and heard. And so no, I was really delighted with the change.
So you play the mother Dora. Yeah. I've always had this question of like actors and actresses who play parents. How, especially like parents where the kid grows up throughout the film, how do you establish a bond with each kid? How do you do you just go for it and just do the scenes, or how did you do that with each of the Abbeys?
I don't know. I'll answer that question in a minute. For some reason, I just want to say.
Yeah, no, totally.
I want to say that I think the younger generation are kind of the conscience, the global conscience in a sort of psychopathic society that is without conscience. And it's interesting. So we just spoke to somebody then who was like, "Oh, my daughter, she's 8 years old, and she's always telling me to recycle."
Right.
And it's kind of like they have to wake us up, and I think this movie is kind of supporting them in that. It's a child's voice, so that I feel very aligned with.
Yeah.
But in terms of how the acting process and bonding with children, I think the thing about kids is they're very imaginative, so it's very easy for them to sort of transport themselves to the reality of the story, whatever it is, because they're in a fantasy play.
Right.
So I didn't make any special effort, really. I just kind of showed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just sort of showed up, and actually they led me, and especially Elsa, who played the teenage daughter. She kind of was from an ocean community, really. And her mother was there with her, and they had this very lovely bond.
Right.
So it was just interesting just witnessing them and being privy to that, and she kind of had the colloquial way of being that sort of suited the character, and I was just sort of getting in line with that, I guess.
Awesome. I love how the grouper just looks in this movie. It looks so real. I know you guys did puppetry, which is kind of unheard of right now. Everything's CGI. Talk to me a little bit about filming those scenes with the grouper.
Yeah, I love puppetry.
Yeah.
And I think, you think of the history of cinema, like Yoda and E.T., it's even Jaws was a puppet, massive big puppet,
huge puppet.
And I think that letting actors interact with real, tangible things is really amazing. And look, great films are made with incredible amounts of CGI. But it's just probably my own filmmaking ambition. I really like the mechanical, old-fashioned nature of it. Working with this incredible sculptor to create the fish and the personality of its face, and no, it was fun. And then I think for the actors, they got to interact with something dimensional.
And underwater, he was swimming, that fish was swimming in the water with us. So there was really not much difference between the fish and what a real fish would be. There was like a couple of poles on the top of his
I was
body.
going to ask, like, how was it, like a
String
robot, or was it?
puppeteers.
It was string puppeteers. Okay.
And they had synchronized to like make that sort of very realistic effect. But yeah, there was 3 guys up there who looked up.
Metal cable, because you can't put electricity, it can't be
Right.
robotic
You
in the water.
Yeah.
So
Making it electrocuted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So little old-fashioned wires and a pole that had them, 4 puppeteers up the top pulling and leading. Incredible.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. Just to like witness that. That's really, really awesome. So you guys talked a lot about how the younger generation is definitely inspiring this environmental movement now and inspired you to make this film. How has the environmental movement kind of impacted your lives before this? I mean, how involved were you guys in that space?
I think I've always had an association with it since my childhood. I grew up in the Blue Mountains outside of Sydney.
Okay.
And my early childhood was walking in the bush with my father.
Yeah.
He was a very early environmentalist, really cared for taught me the principles of going into the bush, bringing your rubbish back out,
Right.
Preserving the natural world,
Right.
taking care of the flora and fauna. So I think the principles of it began early in my life from my
Right.
father.
I would say similarly. I didn't live with my father, but I spent time with him. And he was for a lot of that time living off-grid in the town in Tasmania where permaculture kind of evolved from.
Okay.
So that was kind of, they were savouring the Franklin River. There was all this stuff going on. He wasn't directly involved with all that, but that was the community that he was part of. So that was part of the zeitgeist in my childhood. And then I personally was involved in this little organisation called Children's Campaign for Peace, which was
that's awesome.
a non-nuclear proliferation organisation. Because at that time we were all kind of like terrified. I mean, I don't know why we're not now, but we were at that point kind of considering, there would be no future. So that was something I was preoccupied with for a while. And then over the years, most recently I sort of got involved with a few organisations, including Global Green, a little bit of Kiss the Ground, a little bit with, my grandmother actually started an organisation called Land Care in Australia, which is a dialogue between farmers and environmentalists. So it's always sort of been in my space, so I was really excited to do something actively, creatively.
Did some of those leaders inspire how you played Dora?
Who inspired me was this woman, Sylvia Earle, who I've never met, but I've just been sort of following just because of her specific interests in the ocean. And I guess, I was interested in playing a woman who wasn't particularly feminine or feminized, and was activated. And I don't know where that came from. I think it's sort of in the text in a way.
Right.
The book's also based on this screenplay is also based on a novella written by one of the great mystics. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. He's a real poet, the writer, and I think he sort of whatever was going on in between the lines in the script was definitely in the book, and so I had a real sense of the character from that.
And finally, what were some of your visual influences when deciding how to shoot and how you wanted the film to look?
Yeah, I looked at a lot of films that were set under the water. I went back to the classic Luc Besson film, The Big Blue. Had a look at that. And but interestingly, there aren't that many films that are set beneath and above the water. I love Nicky Caro's film Whale Rider, which played here at Sundance many years ago. So I tried to watch and be aware of what cinema. I looked at a lot of the great documentary work. We worked with an underwater cinematographer who'd worked on Blue Planet, the documentary series. So, I just tried to expose myself to as much as, consuming. But I think it's tricky to film above and beneath the water. That's why there isn't that much. So we're really very proud of how we did it. And we had fun doing it. It was an amazing adventure.
It looks like it, and it's so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, they're incredible cinematography, and it helped that the actors learned how to do their own diving and swimming
and you can feel how passionate the actors are about the environment. It definitely comes through
thank you.
the screen and in your performance as well.
There's another story to that. I actually wasn't that confident in the water at all. not terrified.
More confident now.
Non-confident. So I like trained through the project to face some of that fear. But having done that, experiencing the ocean at that level, it gives you a real sense of like, oh, this is the real reality. Like there's all this noise up here, but this is what's really going on.
Yeah, it's very quiet.
Yeah, and it's happening right now the fish are swimming, and you know what I mean. That's the real world.
Right. That's amazing. Guys, thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.